Welcome to day 3 of my summer cycling trip in Cantabria and Asturias. Day 1 consisted of a shortish ride up Peña, and day 2 featured a slow motion effort up the mighty Angliru. What better way to follow that up than with another challenging HC climb, Alto del Gamoniteiro. Jumping back a bit. Prior to this trip, my knowledge about cycling in northern Spain was limited, but although Angliru was what brought me to the region, there were 2 other main climbs that I hoped to ride, Lagos de Covadonga and Gamoniteiru. I wanted to ride these mainly because they feature in this book I'm always waving about, and I based my cycling ambitions upon nice photos in nice books. A little further research confirmed that Gamoniteiru looked to be unmissable, boasting descriptions such as Angliru's evil sister and one of the most demanding climbs in professional road racing. Perhaps not surprising considering it shares its mountain with Angliru. Averaging 10% for 14.5 kilometers, it gains more elevation than its famous neighbour, but although it has a similar average gradient, it's distributed very differently. The climb starts in Pola de Lina, which is the capital of the municipality of Lina, and this is where I started my ride. Rolling out of the town, my legs were feeling very reluctant to do anything, and I was wondering why I had thought it would be a good idea to try to go full gas up another mountain the day after Angliru. Initially, I had intended to space out my main 3 efforts throughout our 10 days in Spain, but I was just really excited and figured that there was no time like the present. Without any concrete ambitions or goal times other than making sure I was exhausted by the top, I didn't have any sort of pacing plan, so tried to ride into the effort with the hope that my legs would eventually get going. Gamoniteiru can be split into 2 distinct halves. The first 8 kilometers are along quite a wide, well-maintained road, and if you were to stay on this, you'd crest Alto della Cobertoria and drop down into Santa Marina. Even though it looks like quite a major road, there was very little traffic, and I even got a few supportive toots. This section averages 9%, and as it's fairly consistent, I managed to settle into a good rhythm, although it still felt a bit as though I was pedaling through treacle. It was another fairly toasty day, around 30 degrees at the bottom, but I'll take a bit of excess sweating over rain any day. Given the stiff gradients and lack of hairpins or any distinguishing road features, this part of the climb could risk becoming a bit of a slog. But I actually enjoyed it a lot. The footage does a good job of making it look pan flat, but it was certainly tough going. I was feeling alright, having combated sore legs with the trusty strategy of pushing just hard enough that they would be hurting even if they were fresh. I've noticed that for long climbs there's an effort level that I can settle into even when really fatigued, which tends to feel awful initially, but is sustainable for a long time. I'm not too far from the turnoff now, and there's a sustained steeper section. As the surroundings started to open up, I could sort of see the mountain towering above me on the right, and realised there was still an awfully long way to go. I'm about to peel off the main road, and this is where things change drastically. The road immediately narrows, and much to my surprise, I found myself going downhill for a short while. I'm not sure what the purpose of this strip in the middle is, whether or not it's supposed to act as a centre line, because the road was kind of bike lane width and you'd have to have an awfully narrow car to stay on one side. Or maybe the night bus from Harry Potter. The Vuelta hosted a summit finish up here in 2021, and I believe the road was in a much rougher state before they smoothed a few parts over for the race. The road kicks up again as it emerges from the trees, and from here it's about 6.5 kilometers at 10.5% to the summit. It's much less consistent than the first half with some really steep ramps. I didn't know what lay ahead, particularly given the lack of Google Street Map imagery up here, and each twist in the road brought something new. Physically I was suffering, but it was easy to get immersed in those surroundings, slicing past limestone and riding through clouds. I'll let you enjoy some of the footage without my annoying voice. Those cars coming down give you a sense of how narrow the road is, but as it's not a thoroughfare, there was very little traffic and just a few other cyclists. It must have been quite challenging to stage a Vuelta finish up here. This was the finish line photo from the day, so I'm very grateful for the conditions I experienced. The last 2 kilometers average about 13%, and there are some really steep bits, not quite Angliru severity, but a real sting, especially with 1200 meters of climbing in the legs. But this is where you're likely to encounter something which might provide a little adrenaline infusion to get you over those last bumps. Triple whammy, nearly hit a cow, dog and cyclist all at once. Obviously I was in the wrong there, and in my fatigue-addled state expected the descending cyclist to yield to me, so sorry about that, but thanks for shielding me from the dog. These dogs are typically seen with herds of cows as they're used to guard cattle, I think primarily from wolves, and they're always very calm when I pass, but when I'm on a bike I'm scared of all animals, so I was always a bit trepidatious when passing. But it gave me a boost to leg it out of there and tackle the last kilometer, which is the most difficult of the whole climb. I'm that tiny speck in the distance. I think I was moving much slower than my dad thought, so I'll speed that up a bit. At the time I was unaware of how vast the panorama behind me was, looking back on the Nalon Basin and Kiros Valley. One final push to the summit, and then the climb comes to an abrupt end at these communication towers and abandoned weather station. I rolled down to meet my dad, where we unpacked the exciting events that had unfolded.
Do you see the dog there?
The dogs will get going after my car.
Oh my god, that was one of the best times I've done.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
Oh, crazy, crazy.
I think that sums it up pretty well. I don't think climbs can get much better than that. And not just from the physical perspective, which was a very tough pedal from bottom to top, but the whole experience of starting along a comparatively tame road surrounded by oak and beech forests and climbing up into a gradually more barren and wild environment. The definition of an epic cycling climb. As for the effort, despite feeling quite terrible at the start and approaching it in a more relaxed way, it turned out to be probably better than my Angliru effort. Almost exactly the same power but for a bit longer. And don't tell Angliru, but I think I enjoyed Gamoniteiru just as much. Given that it was an out and back climb, you can imagine that I had some fears ahead of my return leg. I don't usually save much descent footage, but I did save a bit from this ride. Let's find out why. Extreme overreaction? Definitely. But cows are surprisingly sprightly, and I'd rather overreact than find myself in the middle of that. After racking up a few extra meters of elevation, I did eventually turn around and safely make it down the mountain without further incident. Next up will be Lagos di Covadonga, quite different from the climbs featured so far, and one that brought its own type of challenges.